So just a little bit about me. So I'm Fahmi Syed, president of the Midnight Foundation. I spent over 20 years in the asset management and hedge fund industry. So I'm very familiar with how institutions, asset managers look at finding price discovery, liquidity discovery, settling those trades, moving margin. And they do that with full privacy. It's between themselves, their counterpart, maybe their custodian. And I came into this blockchain industry, first of all, working at Polkadot with Gavin Wood. And more recently, for the last 2 years, I've been working on the Midnight Project, which has been incubated by Input Output, Charles Hoskinson. So I want to talk about blockchain and the promise that came back in 2008. So in 2008, September, the world was hit with Lehman's bankruptcy and the great financial crisis. And a week after that crisis began, Satoshi dropped the Bitcoin white paper. And Bitcoin then appeared for the first time the following year. And what Bitcoin was trying to show was a promise of a fairer internet, an ability to hold your own assets, to determine how you interact with those assets, borderless transactions. Because during the financial crisis, what we all realized is the salaries that we all worked hard for, the assets that we managed, didn't belong to us. The banks wrote us an IOU. It didn't belong to you. The banks determined whether you could take your money out, whether you could take that money out. I remember sitting there on the Friday before Lehman's crashed, trying to put out $50 million of collateral, and nobody answered the call. They knew what was happening, so therefore institutions suffered, individuals suffered. And that promise that Bitcoin brought has seen this large industry grow up. And we're here today because of what's followed with Ethereum. And Ethereum brought us programmability into the blockchain. So suddenly you didn't just have a store of value, you could actually introduce decentralized programs to run DeFi and other various initiatives. And then with the third generation, what we saw was scalability and interoperability. That scalability came through the likes of Cardano, Solana, Polkadot, and others. But that promise comes with a problem, and a fundamental problem. That promise compromises transparency, and transparency compromises your privacy. To my earlier point, when I was in my hedge fund days, I could find price discovery, liquidity discovery, and nobody knew. I could settle the trades, nobody knew. Today, you can't do that on a blockchain. Today, everything you do, every transaction you make, every asset you hold is there and visible for everyone to see. And it's not just visible today, it's visible forever, because the blockchains are immutable. No large institution is going to come and put its assets and trading history on a blockchain because it's not the right thing to do. On the way here today, I bought a coffee. And that coffee transaction was between me, the barista, and my bank. Put that on a blockchain, everybody knows what you're doing. And anonymity is not privacy. Because we've all, if you're managing large assets in this space, at some point your wallets have been doxed. At some point you've had to move away from that wallet and push it to a different wallet. Imagine in my hedge fund days if I told my traders, sir, you can't trade because your assets have been exposed, we have to move them somewhere else. You've got to wait an hour while we figure that out. It just would not be acceptable. So privacy, we believe, is what drives the fourth generation of blockchains. And the fourth generation blockchains is Midnight, because we're here to deliver that missing piece. We're here to show that there is a place where privacy can exist on a blockchain in a compliant way, where privacy can actually bring real-world adoption, financial adoption. There's no TradFi and DeFi, there's just finance. Blockchain is just another rail for finance. Whether you do fixed income finance, equity finance, now you do blockchain finance. It's finance. Let's stop with TradFi and DeFi. So what is Midnight? And why does it bring that missing piece? Well, the first part is privacy alone is not enough. You need rational privacy, programmable privacy. You need the ability to have both a public state and a private state. So, thank you for being in this room. So I'm going to ask you to participate in a quick survey. Please put your hand up if you're willing to come to me later and tell me your name. If you're happy sharing your name with me. Happy sharing where you work or who you work for, please keep your hands up. Okay. Who's happy telling me what's in their bank balance? One person, very confidently over there. Will you tell me how much you earn? Maybe. But that's what we all do on a blockchain today. Everything you put on a blockchain, everybody gets to see. So this theme around stablecoins, who's going to get the salaries paid in a stablecoin? So everybody can see what you earn and what you hold. I tell you what, the first thing I would do if I receive my salary with a stablecoin is to go back to the wallet that paid me. I might check to see if they have enough funds to carry on paying me for the rest of the year. Are they solvent? But then curiosity, because you're human, and curiosity is part of our nature, we might then decide to look at all the other transactions that went out that wallet. And suddenly you realize you're not the most valued person in that company. How does that make you feel? It will create problems for businesses to use stablecoins to pay salaries on most blockchains. With Midnight, rational privacy is everything that we just went through now. You are willing to share certain parts of information with me, but there are other sensitive information that you do not wish to share. And that's rational privacy. That's programmable privacy. The ability to have a public state and a private state. The ability to share what you want, when you want it, with whom you want it. And Midnight does that through, first of all, protecting your metadata and data when it comes on chain. In fact, most of your data doesn't even come on chain. Because go back to what Bitcoin did, in order to provide proof or the truth around ownership and transactions, they needed to verify those transactions. And the only way Bitcoin solved for that problem was for everybody to see the transactions, for everybody to have a copy of those transactions. So Midnight, we believe, that comes through, proofs when needed. It's providing zero-knowledge proofs to individuals, to the chain, and sharing those with the parties you want to share those with. That is fundamentally empowers that individual, that corporate, to doing more. And through that proof, it opens gateways to other transactions. And that's quite important to think about. Because that world allows a place where you have both permission transactions and permissionless transactions. It provides choice. Privacy is not about hiding things. It's about empowering individuals to make a choice. I choose to go into a permissionless pool, or I suspect many of you are accredited, regulated counterparts. You may choose to go into a permission pool. So within a permissionless environment, we give builders, corporates, the opportunity to choose where they transact. And it's not just financial transactions, medical data, medical records. Sensitive client information shouldn't come on chain. We have a medical company in Turkey presenting 3 million patients' data proofs onto our chain. First of all, to transfer information, but secondly, to open that up to research. That's a new source of revenue. Revenue that allows them to divert to other infrastructure costs, maybe to reduce the premiums to their patients. Reducing the premiums to their patients relative to their competitors allows them to win more patients, more data, more proof, more research. It's a virtuous circle. So that's the first stage, is to provide proofs. But beyond providing proof and that ability to share data in a rational, programmable way, the other thing that hinders blockchains is the tokenomics model. Can I ask for another raise of hands? Who owns an iPhone in this room? Keep your hand up if you paid for those iPhone with Apple shares. No. Apple shares are an investment. They're a volatile asset. They're an investment. You pay for your phone as a consumption through fiat. Fiat is your gas fee. Dollars are your gas fee. In Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, Cardano, the very asset you invest in that you want to go up in price is the very asset you cannibalize to pay for your transactions. It makes no sense. And what happens when that price of that token is $1 million a token? What happens to transaction volumes? They slow down. If you're a corporate deciding which chain you wish to adopt, how do you show your CEO or CFO price capacity, price predictability, capacity on the network? You can't. The economics are broken. So in Midnight, one of the things we've done is to split that. There is a night token. It gives you ownership and governance. No different to owning Apple shares. But that night token emits a secondary resource called dust. Dust is the computational power of Midnight. Dust gives you privacy-enabling solutions and transactions on Midnight. And dust is a renewable energy supply, no different to having electricity. It powers the grid. It powers Midnight. And if you continue to own Night, you'll get refreshed, renewable supply of dust for those transactions that protect your metadata and data. So if you want price predictability and capacity, go and own Night. In fact, we believe in what we're doing in Midnight, that we're giving away 100% of supply through our Glacier drop. Now, if you're a corporate and you don't want a volatile crypto asset on your balance sheet, you can't own Night. You may not choose to own Night. So what do you do then? Well, find partners who have large capacity of Night and therefore large capacity of dust. Custodians. Custodians will be holding a lot of Night for a lot of their clients, generating a lot of dust. It's a new economic model for those custodians. Now they can lease that capacity into Midnight. So Midnight enables consumption of a blockchain for the first time, not ownership, not only ownership. Because nobody owns technology today. AWS broke down, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? The Atlanta Eastern Seaboard region went down, and the first thing you knew about AWS as a client, as a corporate, as an individual, was my website doesn't work. My apps don't work. But most people don't even know that AWS exists because it's a consumption. Nobody owns AWS, they consume it. You don't own your database, you consume it from Snowflake. Intelligence nowadays, you rent from ChatGPT or Grok. Midnight is the first blockchain which allows you to rent that superpower. That block privacy as a service, privacy by default. And therefore, it extends privacy into other networks. Introducing privacy as an afterthought doesn't work. You will leave footprints behind and fingerprints behind. Your metadata will leave a trail. Midnight's superpower around privacy allows other people to rent and consume it. Solana, Arbitrum, and other chains are super fast, but they will never have full privacy. But why can't they be order books or order layers where Midnight is the privacy vault for holding your assets, for holding your identity, for holding that accreditation? And then you don't need multiple identity solutions on chain. You just need one supplier that builds it on Midnight. Midnight is, if you're building a city, and think of blockchains as building a high street, Midnight is the infrastructure layer that sits beneath the high street. It can power every other high street shop that exists, every blockchain that exists. And therefore, it gives you privacy by default, privacy by extension to those other chains. So Midnight, we believe, unlocks blockchain's true potential. Not only if you build for it natively, but also if you build for hybrid applications from other chains. And Midnight unlocks what we call the freedoms of ACE. The freedom of association without permission. That's what Bitcoin promised. That ability to interact with whoever, whenever you wanted. It's the freedom of commerce without restriction. Having transparency on a blockchain is restrictive. Let's be honest, the blockchains that exist today, how much extra TVL volumes are coming in? It's new blockchain comes, you follow the DeFi or the magic money that they print, and then that goes away and you chase that trail of the next chain and the next chain. We think that freedom of commerce comes from privacy, the ability to use that to unlock the restrictions that blockchains provide today. And the last one is the freedom of expression without censorship. After the AWS downtime or issues, I read somewhere that 90% of the internet is controlled by 3 companies. Think about that. 90% of your internet, cloud, everything you do is controlled by 3 companies. In the US, you often talk about the threat of China and them taking over your ports and other things. But what about the threat to you as individuals or as corporates that those 3 entities govern your access to those critical services? So we think that the blockchain should be permissionless. It should be available to everybody. It should allow people to come and build the service they want, whether they're unregulated or regulated. The tools are there within Midnight for people to build that. And that's an important choice that we are providing. So the freedoms of ACE are critical to building that fairer digital future. You could build private DEXs on Midnight, settlement layers. We have the ability to create the first dark pool trading mechanism within a blockchain. You can create a permission pool, an accredited pool. And Midnight could be both the native layer you build it on, but also the settlement layer. We believe it could be the meta chain to every chain, to Ethereum, Polkadot, Cardano, and beyond. And our tokenomics is not about tribalism, it's about bringing everybody into that future, that fairer future. I'm going to play a short video for everyone, just to explain what we mean by this future. And that's what we think we're doing, is allowing everybody here in this room and beyond to break free. We care about blockchains, we care about the individuals building on blockchains, but we also care about everybody outside of this room. Everybody who doesn't care for blockchain. It shouldn't be something we talk about. And we think Midnight is that invisible layer. We see a future where Midnight is an authentication layer, the ZK engine that powers everything. A future where Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan build their own blockchains. And Midnight is that meta chain that allows them to exchange information without putting sensitive data out there. We've got a clinical trial or a hospital, a large children's hospital in California, wanting to participate in interclinical trials. And they find that midnight is the solution that allows them to do that. So that's what we mean by breaking free, is a promise to deliver on what Bitcoin originally told us and sold us. And I want to finish with one last comment, that privacy is not about hiding. Often privacy has such a negative connotation in blockchain. We talk about mixers and tornado cash and lots of other things. That privacy, that blockchains are a wild west where it's full of corruption or bad actors. But through the survey we did today, we all recognize we have a right to privacy. There was information that you didn't want to share with me or anybody else in this room. So privacy is not about hiding. It's about safeguarding what makes you vulnerable. As an asset manager, what makes you vulnerable is people seeing your trades on chain, people seeing your assets connected to a wallet, putting your client information on chain. It should not be that way. So think about how privacy, rational privacy, the ability to program privacy, have a public state and a private state, actually protects you, your business, your clients. Finally, if you haven't heard about Midnight, then you're about to miss the biggest distribution of its kind. Midnight has been built with a vision over the last 6 years. Originally, it started as an EVM project, and then there was a realization that actually you can't build full privacy to how the EVM model exists. So they went back to the drawing board because they believe privacy and identity is the future. So earlier this year, in August of this year, we put 100% of supply out there for 8 ecosystems to come and claim. Because we want people to come and claim the token to access the network, to use the network. We didn't ask VCs for money. We actually gave the token away to VCs. If you held assets in Cardano, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the other chains, VCs could come and claim. We were encouraging them to give those tokens the dust capacity and access to our network to their portfolio companies to come and build. That night distribution now is in the second phase, the scavenger mine, which will end within a week. And it's looking like this could be the largest distribution of its type, both by tokens and by number of wallets. And the launch follows in early December. Privacy is a thematic element flowing through many discussions in blockchain today. So if you're looking at building, looking at solutions, looking at how this follows through, I'd encourage you to come and look at Midnight. Because we believe we're not just another blockchain. We believe we're the next blockchain, here to support all other blockchains. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.